The sky was quiet after the storm of war. Ash and dust covered what once had been a beautiful alien city. Broken towers leaned like ghosts and the smell of metal and smoke hung in the air. A lone human walked between the ruins. Eli, a field engineer sent by the Reconstruction Corps. His mission was simple: search for survivors, recover tech, and report. But in truth, he didn't expect to find anyone alive. His boots crunched on cracked glass as he scanned the area. The wind howled through the hollow buildings. Then faintly he heard something, a soft sound, like a child crying. He froze. It came again, weak, high-pitched, and filled with fear. Eli moved toward the sound, climbing over piles of metal. He reached what looked like a destroyed home. A section of the wall was half-collapsed, glowing faintly with alien symbols. He pulled out his scanner. The reading showed a small life sign under the rubble. "Someone's alive," he whispered. Without thinking, he dropped his equipment and began pulling debris away with his hands. Sharp edges cut his fingers, but he kept going. After several minutes, he uncovered a small form, a little alien girl no older than 6 or 7. Her skin shimmered like pale silver, her hair a faint shade of blue. She was trembling, covered in dust. In her small hand she held a glowing pendant that pulsed softly like a heartbeat. Her large violet eyes blinked open. When she saw Eli, she gasped and tried to crawl away. "It's okay," Eli said gently. "You're safe now." But she didn't understand his words. Her voice was soft and broken when she spoke in her own language. Then, in weak galactic common, she whispered, "Father?" Eli hesitated. "No, I'm not." But she reached toward him with shaking fingers. Mother said the human would come. "You came..." He didn't know what to say. The pendant glowed brighter in her hand. It felt wrong to leave her here. "All right, little one," he said softly. "You're coming with me." He wrapped her in his coat and carried her out of the ruins. She weighed almost nothing. As they passed the broken streets, Eli felt strange, like the world around him was watching. Every few steps he looked back, certain he saw movement in the shadows. At his camp, he cleaned her wounds and gave her water. She drank in small sips, still staring at him with wide eyes. When he tried to take the pendant to scan it, she clutched it tightly. "Mine," she said firmly. Eli smiled faintly. "All right, keep it." That night he sat beside the fire writing his report. Found one survivor, he wrote. Alien child, Valari species. Roughly 6 years old. Malnourished but stable. He paused before typing the next line. "I'm keeping her with me until medical transport arrives." But deep down he knew no one would come soon. The region was too far and the war still smoldered elsewhere. As the girl slept beside the fire, he felt something stir in his chest. A strange warmth he hadn't felt in years. He remembered his sister's children back on Earth, their laughter, the way they clung to his hand. He looked at the little alien girl. She was still holding his coat, whispering in her sleep. "Father," she murmured again. Eli looked away, staring into the flames. "I'm no one's father," he said quietly. "Not anymore." Hours passed. The night turned cold. The fire burned low. Then his comm device began to glitch. A sharp tone echoed, followed by static. Eli frowned and checked the signal. It wasn't human code. It was something else, a deep rhythmic pulse. He adjusted the frequency, trying to decode it. Suddenly, a voice came through. It was faint, layered with static, but he could make out the words. "You took my daughter." Eli froze. The fire crackled beside him. He turned toward the sleeping girl, her pendant now glowing brighter than before. "Who is this?" he said, his hand on his sidearm. The voice answered, colder now. "You took her. You saved her. Now you must take me too." Then the signal vanished. Eli stared at the communicator, the hairs on his neck rising. He looked at the pendant again. It was no longer pulsing gently. It was shining, sending faint beams into the sky. Something was coming. He rushed to shut off the signal, but it was too late. Far above the clouds, a flash of violet light appeared, distant yet growing brighter every second. Eli grabbed his gear, his heart pounding. He didn't know if it was friend or foe, but he had a feeling his quiet mission had just become something far greater. He looked once more at the sleeping child, then at the sky. "All right," he muttered. "Whoever you are, I'm ready." The wind grew stronger. The light in the sky split into 3 streaks, descending fast toward his camp. And in the whisper of static still echoing from his communicator, one last voice came through. Gentle this time, almost sorrowful. Human. Take care of her. Until I arrive. The screen went black. Eli looked up as the first of the ships broke through the clouds, glowing with alien fire, and somewhere deep inside he already knew. This was not the end of his rescue mission. It was only the beginning. The next morning, Eli woke to a strange silence. The little alien girl was still sleeping beside the dim fire, the glowing pendant resting on her chest. The air outside felt heavier than before, like the world itself was holding its breath. He stepped out of the camp tent and looked up. The clouds were thin streaks across the bright sky. Then a faint violet shimmer caught his eyes near the horizon. It wasn't sunlight. It was moving light, smooth and steady, like something searching. Eli felt his heartbeat quicken. He checked his scanner, but it gave no reading. The signal wasn't from the human network. Whatever it was coming from orbit. He turned back to the girl. She was awake now, staring at him. Her violet eyes glowed faintly, the same color as the light above. She whispered one word in her soft voice. Mother. Before Eli could respond, the ground shook. A deep hum rolled through the valley. From the sky, a sleek alien craft descended, leaving trails of glowing blue fire. The ship was unlike anything Eli had seen before. Smooth silver surface, curved wings that shimmered like glass. It landed on the rocky ground not far from his camp, melting the frost around it. Eli raised his weapon out of instinct, but didn't fire. The ship door opened slowly. A tall figure stepped out, her shape outlined by the soft violet glow. It was a woman, or something close to one. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, and her long white hair floated lightly around her face. Her eyes burned with the same light as the pendant. The little girl ran forward, calling in her alien tongue, then switched to broken galactic speech. Mother, you came. The woman knelt and caught her daughter in her arms. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Eli felt the warmth between them, a deep bond that no language could explain. But then the woman's gaze shifted toward him, sharp and cold. You are the human who took her, she said, her voice clear now, mixed with anger and confusion. Eli lowered his weapon slowly. I didn't take her. I found her under the ruins. She was dying. Lyra, that was her name as Eli would later learn, stood tall, still holding her daughter close. Her eyes studied him carefully. Humans do not save Valari children, she said. Not after what your armies did, Eli sighed. Maybe some of us still care. The girl tugged her mother's sleeve and pointed at him. He helped me. He gave me food. He fixed my arm. Lyra looked down, her expression softening for a moment, but the distrust in her eyes didn't fade completely. Why? She asked quietly. Why save her? Eli didn't have a clear answer. He just said because she was alone. No one deserves to die alone. The wind howled through the broken valley. Lyra turned away, pressing her hand on her daughter's head. She whispered something in her language, a prayer maybe. Then she looked at the pendant. The glow had dimmed. She used the beacon, Lyra said. That pendant is not just a memory charm. It's a call for help. I followed the signal here. Eli frowned. You mean that thing brought you down? Yes, it's also what will bring others. Others? She looked at the horizon. The Valari patrols. If they find us, they will kill you for touching my child, and they will take her from me for letting you live. Eli was silent. He didn't move. The meaning hit him hard. Saving the girl meant he had broken not just human rules, but alien ones too. The little girl hugged both of them. Family, she whispered in her small voice. Lyra froze at the word. Her breath caught. For a moment, her proud expression faded and something fragile showed beneath it. Sorrow, guilt, and fear. She turned to Eli again. You don't understand what you've done. You have tied your life to hers now, and because of that, to me, Eli met her eyes. Then I'll face it. Whatever comes. Lyra's eyes softened again, almost in disbelief. The violet sky above them shimmered once more. Somewhere far away, a fleet began to move, drawn by the same beacon that brought her here. Eli looked toward the glowing clouds. Guess we'd better be ready. Lyra nodded slowly. You cannot fight them alone. If you keep my daughter safe, I will stay. But remember this, human. The Valari do not forgive, and neither do your people. The sound of distant thunder rolled through the air, though the sky was clear. Both of them knew what it really was, engines approaching fast. The little girl took both their hands, smiling softly. Together, she said. and for the first time Lyra didn't correct her. The air around the camp grew tense as evening fell. The violet glow in the sky had faded, but Eli could still feel the weight of it above them. He sat near the fire, fixing a broken sensor, while the little alien girl hummed softly beside him, drawing shapes in the dirt. Lyra stood a few steps away, watching him with quiet eyes. She had not spoken much since their last exchange. Her ship stood half-hidden behind a ridge, its engines silent, its hull cracked and smoking from the emergency landing. Every few minutes she looked toward the horizon as if expecting someone or something to appear. Eli finally broke the silence. "You should get some rest. You look exhausted." Lyra turned her gaze toward him. "Valari do not rest when danger is near." "Humans don't either," Eli replied with a faint smile. "But we try." Her daughter giggled at his words. That sound made both adults pause. Lyra knelt beside the girl, brushing dust from her hair. "She hasn't laughed since before the war," she whispered. Eli didn't reply. He only stared into the fire, remembering what the war had taken from everyone, humans and Valari alike. After a long pause, Lyra said quietly, "You don't know what it means that you saved her. For my kind, bonds are sacred. You touched her blood, shared your strength, gave her your warmth. That creates a link between souls." Eli looked up.
"You mean I'm responsible for her now?"
Lyra nodded. "In our law, yes. You have claimed her by saving her life." He frowned. "I didn't claim anyone. I just couldn't leave her to die." "That is why it matters," Lyra said softly. "You acted from your heart, not duty. And that is something rare among humans or Valari." The fire crackled between them. For a brief moment, the sound of engines in the distance made them both tense. Eli reached for his weapon, but the noise faded. Only wind echoed through the ruins again. He sat back down. "Tell me something, Lyra. Why did you come here alone?" "There must have been others." Her expression darkened. "There were," she said. "But I lost them when the patrols found my signal. I had to leave them behind or they would have destroyed my ship. I came because the beacon led me to her. I couldn't ignore it." She touched the pendant on her daughter's neck. Its glow had faded to a soft pulse now, peaceful instead of frantic. "This was made from my lifeblood. It carries my energy, my essence. When she was born, I promised that if she ever called, I would come." Eli listened carefully, feeling a quiet respect grow inside him. "You kept your promise. That's more than most people would." Lyra looked at him again, her eyes calmer now. "And you kept her alive. Perhaps we are not so different after all." The girl yawned and crawled into her mother's lap. Lyra wrapped her arms around her gently, almost protectively. Eli watched, feeling something tighten in his chest. It had been years since he'd seen such a simple image of family. He turned away, pretending to focus on the fire. "When your people come for you, will they take her away too?" Lyra's eyes flickered with pain. "They might. They will say she is tainted by human touch, that she no longer belongs among the Valari." Eli clenched his jaw. "Then we can't let them find her." She looked at him sharply. "You would stand against both our races for her?" "I already did," he said quietly, "the moment I pulled her from the rubble." For a while there was no sound except the whisper of the wind. Then Lyra spoke again, softer this time. "Perhaps the galaxy has punished us long enough for our hatred. Maybe it's time someone tried something different." Eli nodded slowly. "Maybe saving one life is how it starts." The girl stirred in her mother's arms and smiled in her sleep. Lyra brushed a hand over her face, then looked at Eli again. Her voice dropped low. "If they find us, I will not let them take her, even if it means betraying my own kind." Eli's hand tightened on the metal beside him. "Then we'll protect her together." Outside, the wind carried distant thunder. The sound wasn't natural. It was engines, many of them, crossing the mountains in formation. Lyra stood up, eyes wide with sudden fear. "They found us." Eli rose too, his heart pounding. "Then we move now." She nodded, pulling her daughter close. The girl's pendant began to glow again, lighting their faces in violet light. As they ran toward the dark hills beyond the valley, the first ships broke through the clouds above. Their lights swept the ground like blades, searching for movement, and in that moment Eli knew there was no turning back. He wasn't just a rescuer anymore. He was part of something far bigger, caught between two worlds, bound by a child who belonged to both. The night sky burned with violet trails as the Valari ships swept low across the valley. Their lights cut through the fog like sharp blades, The sound of their engines filled the air with a deep hum that made the ground tremble. Eli ran with the child in his arms while Lyra led the way through the broken terrain. Her silver skin reflected faint flashes of light as she guided them toward the hills. The girl held her pendant tight against her chest, whispering soft words only she could understand. They reached a narrow cave hidden behind a fallen tower. Lyra motioned for silence. Inside, the air was cold and damp. Eli set the girl down and took a breath, his lungs burning. "They're sweeping the area," he said. "We don't have long," Lyra nodded. "They will not stop until they find us. They believe you have taken what is theirs." He looked at her sharply. "I didn't take her. I saved her." Lyra's voice softened. "I know, but the Valari Council will not see it that way. To them, a human holding a Valari child is an insult to everything they stand for." Eli leaned against the rock wall, thinking hard. "And my own command will call me a traitor if they find out I helped an alien." The little girl looked between them, her voice trembling. "Then where can we go?" Lyra knelt beside her, brushing her hair gently. "Somewhere far from both sides. Somewhere they cannot reach." Eli's gaze hardened. "Then we find that place, together." Before Lyra could answer, the cave shook. A blast hit nearby, showering dust from the ceiling. The sound of shouting in the alien tongue echoed through the ruins outside. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. "They are close. Too close." Eli pulled out his scanner and cursed under his breath. "They're triangulating your beacon. That pendant is giving us away." The girl clutched it tighter. "No, it's my mother's light." Lyra hesitated, then took her daughter's hands. "It's time to hide the light, little one." The girl looked sad but obeyed. She pressed the pendant to her chest, whispered a word, and the glow faded completely. The cave plunged into darkness, leaving only the dim blue light from Eli's scanner. For a moment, there was silence. Then Eli noticed a different kind of hum, a mechanical rhythm that wasn't alien. He froze. "Wait, that's not them." Lyra frowned. "What do you mean?" He switched frequencies on his device. A human signal appeared on the screen. "It's the reconstruction corps. My people are coming this way too." Lyra's expression turned hard. "So we are hunted by both." Eli nodded slowly. "Looks like it." The girl tugged her mother's sleeve. "Will they take me away again?" Lyra held her close. "Not while I breathe." Eli checked the edge of the cave. Outside, 2 Valari scouts landed on the ridge, scanning with bright sensors. Behind them, human drones moved through the fog, following their own pattern. Neither side saw the other yet, but both were closing in on the same spot. "We need to move," he whispered. Lyra pointed toward a narrow path at the back of the cave. "There's an old tunnel that leads to the cliffside. My ship's escape pod is hidden there. If we can reach it, we might escape before they surround us." Eli nodded and picked up the girl again. "Lead the way." They moved through the tunnel, careful not to make a sound. The passage was tight and uneven, forcing them to crawl at times. Water dripped from the ceiling. Every sound seemed louder in the silence. Halfway through, a flash of light filled the tunnel. A drone had spotted them. The hum of its rotors echoed as it fired a signal flare. "Run!" Eli shouted. They sprinted toward the exit. Lyra turned, raised her hand, and sent a burst of violet energy at the drone. It exploded in a shower of sparks, lighting the tunnel with purple fire. They burst out onto the cliffside. Below them lay a frozen river, and above, the stars shimmered behind drifting clouds. "There." Lyra pointed to a small metal pod half buried in snow. They ran toward it, but a sharp sound cut through the wind. A human gunship hovering nearby. A spotlight locked on them. Through the comms, a human voice shouted, "Stand down, Eli. You're under arrest for aiding alien fugitives." Eli didn't stop. He ran faster, holding the girl tight. "Not today," he muttered. The spotlight shifted as alien ships appeared from the opposite direction. Beams of light crossed the sky as both sides opened fire. Explosions tore through the frozen valley. Lyra reached the pod and slammed her hand on the door. It opened with a hiss. She pushed her daughter inside, then looked back at Eli. "Come with us," she said. He hesitated for only a second before jumping in. The pod's engines roared to life. As they lifted off, human and Valari fire rained around them, shaking the small craft. Lyra gripped the controls, her face calm despite the chaos. Eli held the child close. "Where are we going?" Lyra's voice was steady. "Somewhere they can't follow. Somewhere neither human nor Valari rule." Outside, the storm of light and fire swallowed the valley, and for the first time, Eli realized that saving one life had turned into saving two worlds. The escape pod flew through the clouds, its engines burning faint blue fire as it broke through the storm. Eli sat strapped beside the little girl, who was holding tightly to his arm. Across from them, Lyra piloted the craft with calm precision, though her eyes never left the scanner. Behind them, the sky glowed with the red and violet flashes of battle. No one spoke for a long time. The pod shook from the shock waves of explosions, but Lyra kept control. Her hands moved quickly over the alien console, rerouting power, changing frequencies, hiding their trail. Finally, Eli asked, "Did we lose them?" Lyra didn't answer immediately. She looked at the screen, her expression unreadable. "For now. But they will not stop. Humans will want to know why you ran. Valari will want to punish me for trusting you. We are outlaws now." Eli gave a tired smile. "Guess I've been called worse." The little girl looked up at both of them. "Are we safe now?" Lyra reached over and touched her daughter's cheek. "Safe for a little while." The girl nodded and leaned her head against Eli's shoulder. Within moments, she was asleep. The hum of the engines filled the silence again. Eli glanced at Lyra. "Where are we going?" She hesitated before answering. "There's an old observatory beyond the mountains. It was built before the war by both our races. It's abandoned now. If we reach it, we can hide there until the storm clears." Eli nodded. "Then that's where we go." Hours passed. The pod crossed snowy ridges and frozen rivers. When the fuel warning blinked red, Lyra guided them down into a canyon hidden between the cliffs. The pod landed roughly, skidding across ice before stopping beside a cracked dome rising from the rocks. They stepped out into the cold air. The observatory stood silent, its metal walls covered in frost, its towers broken. Inside, dust floated in the still air, but the main structure was intact. Old power systems hummed faintly when Lyra reactivated them. "This place is forgotten," she said softly. "No signals, no patrols. We can rest here." Eli set up a small heater while the girl explored the room, laughing softly as she found old glowing crystals. For the first time since the ruins, her laughter was bright. Lyra watched her daughter for a long moment before turning to Eli. "You risked everything for her. You didn't have to." He shrugged. "Maybe I did. Maybe that's what makes me human." Lyra smiled faintly. It was the first real smile he had seen from her. "Among my people, to save a life means you share its path. You are bound by fate now, whether you want it or not." Eli looked at her carefully. "And you? Are you bound too?" She was quiet for a moment. "I was bound the day she was born, but now I am bound to you as well. You kept my promise when I could not." Eli didn't reply. The fire between them crackled softly. Outside, snow began to fall again, silent and endless. Later, when the HFY girl fell asleep wrapped in a blanket, Lyra sat beside the window staring at the stars. Eli joined her holding a metal cup of warm liquid. "You should get some rest," he said. Lyra shook her head. "I can't. I keep thinking about what will happen next. If they find us, they will kill you first. Then they will take her away. I can't let that happen." Eli looked at her. "Then don't. Stay. Fight with me if you have to." She turned to him, her eyes shining in the dim light. "You would fight against your own kind for us?" "I already did," he said simply. For a moment, the silence between them felt warm instead of heavy. The storm outside had faded, leaving only the sound of soft wind. Lyra reached for the pendant around her daughter's neck, holding it between her fingers. "This is more than a beacon. It's our bond. As long as it glows, it means we're still together." Eli nodded slowly. "Then we'll make sure it keeps glowing." She met his gaze again, her voice steady but filled with something deeper now. "If you want to keep her safe, then you must take me too. Wherever you go, I will follow. That is my choice as a mother." Eli didn't speak. He just looked at her, understanding the weight of her words. Outside, a faint light flickered on the horizon. Neither of them noticed it yet, But something was coming. Lyra stood, her eyes on the stars. Tomorrow they will come for us again, but tonight let her dream. Eli looked at the sleeping girl, then at the alien woman who had just offered him her trust. He knew the fight wasn't over. But for the first time, he didn't feel alone. The observatory lights dimmed as power faded, leaving them in the soft glow of the pendant. It pulsed slowly between them. One rhythm, one bond, one promise of what was still to come. The first light of morning touched the frozen mountains around the observatory. The air was quiet, but beneath that silence there was tension, like the world was waiting to breathe again. Inside the old structure, Eli checked his scanner. The readings were not good. 2 separate signals were moving toward them, one human, one Valari. Both fast, both armed. He looked at Lyra, who was sitting beside the sleeping girl. "They found us," he said quietly. Lyra stood, her silver skin catching the pale light from the window. "How long until they arrive?" "An hour, maybe," he said. "If the weather slows them." Lyra walked to the old console and touched the cracked screen. It flickered to life, showing the outside feed. Snow clouds rolled over the horizon, glowing faintly from the engines of the approaching ships. "They will not leave until one of us is dead," she said calmly. Eli took a deep breath. "Then we make sure it's not us." He began preparing defenses, using the observatory's leftover parts. He set up old energy coils and reinforced the doors with metal sheets. Lyra joined him without a word, moving gracefully, her every action precise. They worked side by side while the girl woke and watched in silence. "Why are you building walls?" she asked softly. Eli smiled faintly. "So the bad people stay out." The girl nodded and began helping, carrying small tools in her hands. Lyra looked at her daughter and whispered, "Brave like her father." Eli didn't correct her this time. He just kept working. Outside, the wind picked up, howling across the cliffs. Then came the first sound of engines, deep and steady, growing louder. Eli's scanner blinked red. "They're here." Through the broken dome, he saw shadows moving through the fog. Human soldiers in dark armor descended on one side, and alien figures in shining suits on the other. Both forces unaware that the other was so close. Lyra stepped to the center of the observatory, holding the pendant in her palm. Its light began to pulse faster. "They are coming for this," she said. "But they will find something else instead." Eli loaded his rifle and took position near the window. "If they want to fight, they'll get one." The first explosion hit the outer wall. Dust rained from the ceiling. The girl screamed and Eli turned to calm her. Lyra placed a protective arm around her. "Stay behind me," she said firmly. Human soldiers shouted orders outside. At the same time, Valari beams tore through the fog, striking the humans' vehicles. Within minutes, chaos filled the valley. The 2 sides turned on each other, each believing the other was protecting their enemy. Eli used the confusion to fire warning shots, keeping them away from the entrance. Lyra joined in, sending bright arcs of violet energy from her hands, each blast lighting up the ruins. Through the smoke and snow, Eli saw something he couldn't forget. Humans and Valari fighting side by side without even realizing they were destroying themselves. "We can't win like this," he shouted. "They'll both destroy the place." Lyra's voice rose above the noise. "Then we end it now." She turned back to the console and began typing rapidly. The observatory's old power core hummed to life. Eli saw what she was doing and his heart dropped. "You're overloading it." She looked at him, her eyes calm. "It's the only way to stop them. The shield will form once before it burns out. It will protect this place long enough for you and her to escape." "No," Eli said firmly. "We stay together." Lyra smiled faintly. "You already gave her a life. Now let me give her a future." Before he could stop her, she placed the pendant on the control pad. Its glow merged with the system's light. The air crackled with energy. Outside, lightning arcs spread from the observatory, forming a dome of shimmering light. The explosion stopped as both sides were thrown back by the shockwave. Eli grabbed Lyra's arm. You'll die if you keep this up. Her voice softened. Then let me die for something that matters. He held her hand tightly, refusing to let go. We do this together. Lyra looked at him, her expression breaking for the first time. You stubborn human. The light grew brighter, wrapping around them. The girl reached out, crying for her mother. Lyra turned and smiled through the glow. Never forget, little one. You are loved by both worlds. The final surge of power burst outward. The mountain shook as the energy shield expanded, blocking every weapon and shutting down all systems nearby. When the light faded, the valley was silent. The storm had ended. Eli woke hours later among the ruins, the child asleep beside him. The observatory's core was gone, melted into glass. Lyra's pendant lay where she had stood, cold now, its glow faded. He picked it up slowly, his heart heavy but calm. The world outside was quiet again. He looked at the sleeping girl and whispered, Your mother kept her promise. And as the sun rose over the valley, the first human and Valari ships withdrew, leaving behind only silence and the start of something new, a fragile peace born from one mother's choice. The war had ended, but the scars of it still covered the land. The mountains stood silent now, their white peaks reflecting the soft light of dawn. The old observatory was gone, reduced to a shell of glass and twisted metal. Yet from that destruction, something new had begun. Months had passed since that day. Across the borderlands, stories spread about the strange event that stopped two armies at once. Neither side could explain the light that had burst from the mountains, nor why both fleets had lost power at the same time. Some said it was a weapon. Others said it was a miracle. Eli knew the truth. He had lived it. He walked quietly through the rebuilt settlement deep in the valley where human and Valari traders now worked side by side. The air smelled of smoke and bread and melting snow. Children ran through the streets, laughing in both languages. Peace was still new, fragile, but it was real. Behind him, small footsteps followed. The little Valari girl, now stronger, her skin shining like silver under the light, skipped along, humming a tune. She called him Papa now without fear or confusion. Eli never corrected her. When they reached the hill above the settlement, she stopped and looked at the sunrise. She's watching us, isn't she? She said softly. Eli smiled. Yes, she is. He took the pendant from around his neck. It had never glowed again after that day, but it still felt warm to the touch. He had repaired its chain and kept it close, not as a beacon, but as a memory. Do you remember her voice? He asked. The girl nodded. She said, I am loved by both worlds. Eli crouched beside her. And she was right, because you are the bridge between them. Below them, groups of humans and Valari worked together to rebuild a landing field. It was the first joint colony of the new Peace Council, a place where both species would live, trade, and learn. Eli had helped design it. The girl had named it Lyra's Rest. As the sun rose higher, a transport ship descended from the clouds. Its white hull bore the symbols of both races intertwined. The sight drew crowds of settlers cheering as it landed. For the first time, humans and Valari celebrated together. Eli placed a hand on the girl's shoulder. It's time, he said. She looked up at him with wide violet eyes. Time for what? For the ceremony. The council wants to meet the girl who stopped a war. She giggled shyly. But I didn't stop it. Mama did. Eli smiled faintly. She started it. You finished it just by being alive. They walked down the hill toward the landing site. People stepped aside as they passed, some saluting Eli, others bowing to the child. She didn't understand all the attention, but she smiled at everyone. Her laughter carried through the crowd like sunlight breaking through clouds. Inside the new council dome, the representatives of both races waited. Tall Valari elders with shining robes stood beside human officers. When the girl entered, the room fell silent. Eli guided her to the center. An old Valari elder spoke first. This child carries the light of unity. Her mother gave her life to protect it. The human who saved her now stands as proof that compassion can rebuild what war destroyed. Eli said nothing. He didn't need to. He simply looked around the hall and saw hope where once there had been hate. The elder continued. From this day let it be known that the Valari and the humans share this world. Bound not by treaties or weapons, but by the bond of a mother, a child, and a man who chose mercy. The room filled with soft applause. The girl looked up at Eli, confused but happy. Does this mean we can stay? He nodded. It means we can live. Later, when the ceremony ended, Eli took her outside. The air smelled of rain, and the mountains glowed gold in the afternoon light. Birds circled above the observatory ruins in the distance. The girl lifted her face to the wind. She's still here, she said. I can feel her. Eli closed his eyes. For a moment, he thought he heard it too. A soft voice carried by the wind whispering the same words he had heard that night in the snow. Take care of her. Until I arrive. He looked at the sky, his eyes calm. You kept your promise, Lyra. Now I'll keep mine. The girl took his hand. Together they walked back toward the settlement where humans and Valari worked side by side. The sun sank slowly behind the mountains, painting the sky in colors neither race had ever seen before. And as the first stars appeared, the world that had once known only war began its new chapter. With a child born of two worlds, a human who refused to give up, and the memory of a mother whose love changed the fate of a galaxy.